3 days after VSEA's 71st annual meeting adjourned, the state fails to show for negotiations with VSEA's non-management unit bargaining team. Shortly after, reports begin swirling of another projected budget deficit. These events foreshadowed how difficult this round of bargaining would be for all teams.
Well, the team thought this round of bargaining would be tough, but we had no idea how tough. I mean, VSEA has not even been to the labor board for a decision since 1996. And the last person you honestly would expect to be fighting this hard at the table is the man that came to our annual meeting in 2014 asking for our endorsement, and then after being elected, instructed his negotiators to come out of the gate with a cut to our pay. Not going to happen on our watch.
We've met today to negotiate a fair contract for next year. They didn't tell us until last night that they weren't going to be able to meet with us.
AOT members who had come to Montpelier for their opening bargaining session were not happy, so they marched.
Yeah, they've had this information for 7 days, and they initially made it seem like they were going to meet with us, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they just kind of fell back on what they had said.
The state labels the workers' action a stunt. Meanwhile, VSEA officially launches the VSEA Fund for the Children of Lara Sobel. Members are asked to contribute and to promote the fund far and wide. The fund's creation coincides with VSEA's launch of a campaign to enhance frontline workers' safety and security. Lara's father tells the press, the VSEA has done a remarkable job in the setup and administration of this fund for the benefit of Lara's children. By mid-October, the fund had already exceeded $10,000. Rumors of the deficit prompt the Times-Argus to publish an editorial on October 30th titled A Moral Budget, which ends with, protecting the tax privileges of the wealthy should not be the priority that determines our state budget. Even the Vermont Chamber of Commerce president understands the damage that has been done, telling the Commons, there's nothing in our state budget that's easy to cut. There's no fat here. There's real need here. But will lawmakers listen? Back at the bargaining table, the state responds to requests by going public with proposals. Meanwhile, VSEA's Judiciary Bargaining Team files ULP against Judiciary Branch to force them to the table in August 2015, as opposed to February 2016 or later. It's rejected on a technicality.
DCF Chief Ken Schatz telling a special panel of lawmakers they now track every threat they receive. 85 have come in just since Sobel's murder. 73 of those directed against social workers, and some are chilling.
Many of the threats that we received do refer to the killing of Lara Sobel. I mean, and that's the context in which people describe it. And that's awful. I mean, I think that the trauma that our staff are undergoing, not only just being threatened, but the specific reference to that killing is really, really challenging.
Even as their caseloads keep rising, as opiate addiction puts more kids into state custody and field workers in risky situations, he said. While we've heard state leaders say police tag along whenever needed, Cara Haynes told a different story.
It is very, very challenging to get law enforcement to respond with workers when there's safety concerns.
Some towns respond, she said, others don't.
Times-Argus editorial supports VSEA members' safety enhancement efforts, writing, DCF needs more manpower. It is on the front lines, and to leave it there unsupported by reinforcements would be unconscionable.
I do feel it important to tell you that I sit here as a nearly maxed out social worker. I say this because my testimony may become emotional at times, but I feel that it's representative of those of us on the front lines. I'm worried that we're creating a system that isn't going to be able to maintain the workers that are in it for the right reasons and want to do this work.
Recently, my union, the VSEA, joined with the Sobel family to create a fund dedicated to helping Lara's two girls, both now and in the future. It's called the VSEA Fund for Lara Sobel's Children. Please help us honor Lara Sobel's legacy of helping children by making a contribution today to this special fund dedicated to helping Lara's daughters.
Tracy was also at the State House, educating lawmakers about the 3 key safety recommendations social workers are seeking. VSEA President Dave Bellini pens a commentary in the press titled, Lara's Legacy, Enhanced State Employee Safety. In it, he says, in December, the Shumlin administration announced its desire to add 28 new social worker positions. VSEA DCF members then meet personally with the governor to discuss their safety and security concerns. VSEA issues a press release calling on Judiciary Branch to beef up security in Vermont's courthouses. President Bellini writing, not content with management's offer to come to the table in mid-December, VSEA Judiciary members make a video. VSEA members from across state government conduct a worker safety action outside the Pavilion Building. After the rally, President Bellini led a delegation into the Pavilion Building to hand-deliver union's priorities. Lawmakers come to the State House on December 2nd for budget briefing, told to expect a $60 million plus deficit for FY 2017. Senator Anthony Polina wastes no time responding to news of the deficit. In an op-ed he writes, meanwhile, the court administrator finally sits down at the table with the judiciary team. VSEA NMU members across Vermont appear in a video holding signs asking the state to negotiate fairly. General Assembly's 2016 session begins, and VSEA Legislative Committee members are there to greet lawmakers with a special breakfast. Governor's budget address includes several cuts to services, including closing Community High School Vermont field offices, cutting HeyU positions, shutting down Vermont's only 2 PSAPs.
The news there was going to be an attempt to shut down the last 2 remaining PSAPs in Williston and Rockingham hit us all pretty hard. Myself and other dispatchers didn't waste any time volunteering to help VSEA make our case to lawmakers that we should remain open. Thankfully, they listened. They were able to help put the brakes on the discussion for this year anyway. We know we have to remain on guard.
And closing the St. Johnsbury Work Camp.
Glad the VSEA members were working here were able to voice their debate with the legislators and politicians in Montpelier to help them more understand the loss of the work camp would have been a huge mistake. The nonprofits and the communities and the municipalities in this area, they profit and benefit from these inmates. These inmates also, they profit out of this. They learn work ethics and little structure and what daily life is all about. And hopefully this camp can stay around for many more years.
VSEA member Tracy Casanova testifies in favor of S-154, legislation to enhance the penalties for assaulting a DCF worker and criminalize the act of making threats. VSEA and its DCF members score a big win as the Senate officially passes S-154. Governor Shumlin signs S-154 into law. VSEA members come en masse to the State House on State House Day to begin a months-long effort to defeat service and job cuts, stop privatization, and support enhanced safety and security measures. State employee safety and security is a top priority for DCF members and others attending. Workers representing DOC, PMP, VPCH, VVH, and others also made their case for safety and security improvements. As part of VSEA's State House Day 2016, House Speaker Smith personally assures VSEA members that, regardless of the current standstill in contract negotiations, he will be including money in the budget to fund a COLA for state employees. VSEA members lobbied, VSEA members made calls and sent notes, VSEA members mobilized. And when the gavel banged to end the session in May, VSEA members and your legislative team achieved full Pay Act funding for contracts first year, no closure of the St. Johnsbury Work Camp, no closure of the Community High School of Vermont field offices, no loss of HAYU positions, no privatization of 2 remaining 911 call centers, killed the amendment to privatize the Veterans Home, secured full funding for the Veterans Home, passed S-154, a bill to enhance protection for DCF workers, helped create 45 new classified positions, mostly in DCF. Secured millions for security improvements throughout the state. Helped secure $600,000 for Vermont state colleges. Prevented the reorganization of AHS into 2 agencies. Expanded the position pilot program to help reduce temp use. Ensured financial compensation for Lara Sobel's daughter's health and education. And one very tough loss, the privatization of the Risk Management Division.
The loss of our Risk Management Division members is a hard pill to swallow. And while we won a majority of our legislative fights, this loss still stings. We must all work even harder in the coming year to help VSEA and the Legislative Committee formulate a strategy to defeat future privatization efforts, and there will most certainly be some.
Meanwhile, members of VSEA's Vermont State College's bargaining team sit down at the table to exchange proposals with the Chancellor. And NMU Supervisory and Corrections Team members finally received the Fact Finder's report. It supports VSEA's positions. As expected, the state chooses to fight.
We followed the process in place to resolve these kinds of contract disputes. And when the fact finder sided with us and not the state, we were happy to make the fact finder's report our last best offer that we then took to the Labor Relations Board.
Refusing to accept the fact finder's recommendations, the state forces the VSEA teams to appear in front of the Vermont Labor Relations Board on April 7th.
And I think by the time the VLRB issued its decision, the state negotiators knew they were going to lose. We told them they would.
And after a few weeks' wait, now the fight begins to fund the agreed-to contracts. Candidates and politicians conduct joint press conference with VSEA to call on lawmakers to fully fund the contract. VSEA members like President Bellini testified for full funding of the contract at the State House.
We were bargaining in good faith with the state for, well, I think a little over 9 months, and we couldn't reach an agreement for the first time in 20 years. And you've heard that. And I was there 20 years ago as well. I believe the economy was much more difficult then. But really, it wasn't long ago when a neutral fact finder said, we think you guys should take a 3% pay cut. And in fact, that neutral fact finder, that was his opinion, and we did take a 3% pay cut. We didn't bellyache to the labor board. And here we are, and the neutral fact finder, a person, in high regard, has been around forever, and he was agreed to by the state of Vermont. It was their choice and our choice. And he made his opinion, and we basically went with his opinion to our last best offer.
Listening to state employees, Senate Appropriations Committee votes to fully fund year one of the contract. Soon after, the Senate passes budget with full funding for the NMU Corrections and Supervisory contracts. Legislative Conference Committee approves full funding of the NMU Corrections and Supervisory Unit contracts in year one. Meanwhile, with these 3 VSEA units wrapped up, VSEA's Judiciary team announces that it's headed to fact find. VSEA Judiciary Unit members produced short video to draw attention to docket clerk wage disparity, which is one of the team's bargaining issues.
When I say our unit, the judiciary is a part of the Vermont State Employees Association, VSEA, and we have our own unit, judicial unit. Our bargaining team sent a letter in the early fall, if not late summer, to the court administrator's office indicating we were ready to bargain. And they didn't want to do that yet, and we didn't start until February. It's one of the difficulties we see is that we see that the CAO, Court Administrator's Office, is blocking efforts to get raises above inflation by bargaining after the funds have been allocated.
Sounds like a problem.
It does. We see it as a system that sort of preserves gender pay inequality.
Members of the Vermont State College's bargaining team reached tentative agreement with the Chancellor's office on a new 4-year agreement. VSEA members help ensure that Vermont becomes the 5th state to pass paid sick leave. Vets Home receives 2 prestigious distinctions, achieves a 0 deficiency rate for the 2nd consecutive year, and receives a 5-star rating from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, one of the best in the nation.
That's pretty good, and I don't know what more we can do to convince some of the people who want to privatize the Vets Home that we do an exceptional job. The state should be more responsible for the care of our veterans, not some private company. Our Vermont veterans deserve the best.